Dear friends of Pax Europiana, this is very historic moment. We are now at the moment where basically tomorrow the EU summit will start on the 23rd of June and there will be the EU candidate status for Ukraine. This is absolutely historic and that's a major breakthrough for European peace, for the unity of Europe, for the whole world actually. It was what I was fighting for since 2016 when I came to Ukraine, and I'm absolutely happy about this one. Just, why didn't it happen already in 2016 when it was so clear that the people of Ukraine have opted for the European future on Euromaidan, before on the Orange Revolution, and on many other occasions already in 98, in 91, in 1918, and so on and so on. So it was absolutely clear that this will come one day. Now it's happening. It's absolutely historic. I want to address some concerns. The European left, they have now found out that there is corruption in Ukraine. Yes, no shit, Sherlock. Obviously there is, but it's getting much lower. And it was Yanukovych who was the mega corrupt guy. And they have massively reduced corruption in Ukraine. And by joining the European Union, all the competition laws, all the transparency will be implemented and enforced. Yeah? So there will be de-oligarchization, absolutely. And we should also reform the European Union, absolutely. The reason why we have not done it is then also the results. We have problems in Romania, Slovakia, Malta, but you cannot blame that on Ukraine. So, European left, please, don't invent any Russian talking points like Mr. Leimer from Austria. This was really very mean recently. So, then comes the, that we have to reform the EU. Yes, absolutely, let's reform it. It was not Ukraine stopping us. It was not Kosovo stopping us. So, what are we waiting for? Let's do it. And obviously we have to change into a federal Europe. We have to have more powerful European institutions, a stronger Frontex, a stronger rule of law component, and all this stronger FBI, stronger public prosecutor. It was not Ukraine stopping us in any way. So let's do that, but let's not somehow delay Ukraine for that. Also there is some unfortunate developments because Georgia is somehow treated in a EU potential candidate status now. Then Ukraine and Moldova will get candidate status. Why is this artificial distinction between potential EU candidate status and candidate status anyhow? So we will have then free potential, Georgia, Kosovo, Bosnia. Bosnia has already since 2018-16 asked for the candidate status, is rejected by the same people who give Ukraine now the EU candidate status in a spontaneous move. Of course, very well deserved. Of course, they are ready. Of course, it's the right political step. But obviously, it's also absolutely good to give the same status to Kosovo, Georgia, and to Bosnia. Absolutely. And when I see some remarks that Kosovo is not ready because Ukraine has not recognized, we should also ask all the candidate status countries to recognize each other. That's also absolutely something we could ask and we should ask, because when we are now redistributing massively, that's will be my next point, we should also ask for common security foreign policy. Also Georgia and Moldova to join all the sanctions which we have imposed against Russia for the war in Ukraine, that we can ask for all EU candidate countries, also for Serbia, also for Moldova, also for Georgia, also for Bosnia. I think yes. And there is unity in the foreign policy, and that we can ask everybody. Then we need also, and it's also very important, the candidate status is very important financially, but it's not a Marshall Plan per se. We also need to have a debt package like we had it for COVID. That's very important as well. We need to have a significant, I think, double the size of the COVID package, because the crisis of the war, the economic crisis, the energy transition, the rearmament, all this, the reconstruction of Ukraine, all this is very costly. And we cannot leave it just to the American taxpayers. European taxpayers have to pay their fair share of the burden, and it's much better because it's deflationary if we work together, all of us, and we make this happening together. So the logic is that we really build this unity together, and we somehow, sorry, I'm in the open and I have to wash away some flies. The situation is that we need this 1.5 billion package of debt, which I have called for a lot of times. And obviously we need a common fundament to build so much debt and so much effort of the European taxpayers. It must be economically on the euro, because spending it on the hryvnia or on the lei or lari or whatever kind of currencies, dinars, the currency must in the minimum be pegged on the euro. But it's very bad if we don't put it immediately on the euro, and we have done it much better. The reconstruction of Kosovo and Montenegro was on the euro, and it was working very well. So that's my precedent, and I repeat, that's the best way to do it. And the next step is also, next to the euro and the big debt package, we need to have a massive infrastructure effort, also financed by this new package, because now recently you see that the Romanian-Ukrainian infrastructure, we have to somehow revitalize the Soviet infrastructure, which was now defunct for 30 years between Romania and Ukraine because of political issues and because of lack of European redistribution efforts and lack of competence and lack of ambition to really integrate the Romanian and the Ukrainian infrastructure into the European standards. Now, under the pressure of the war, we introduced the electricity system. Very good. Let's do it. It's very good. But let's also do the whole infrastructure which we missed in the last 10 years in Romania. And let's really build Europe united systematically in all areas, not just in Western Europe, rich, happy. In the COVID, it was a lot of support for the Southern Europeans. Now it's time for a lot of support for the Eastern Europeans. In the Ukraine war, obviously, they hit much worse than the West. But everybody is hit by the energy, in fact, and by the agriculture. So the infrastructure is so important to transport the Ukrainian goods westwards and also to soften the blows of the energy system. So that's the logic of my package. And again, I call that all the countries together are treated fairly, and it must be that all the countries, like also Kosovo, Albania, Macedonia, but first of all the NATO allies, to be very fast in the European Union. I repeat, Montenegro and North Macedonia and Albania can be very fast in the European Union, and there is also the option for Bosnia to be in NATO and for Kosovo to be in NATO. I called for that many times, and I wonder what is going on. And obviously the NATO summit must also be addressed, because we have to see everything as a unit, G7, NATO, EU, and we must share the burden of the financial cost of winning the war. And we must win this war, by the way, to be very clear. And we must not 7 German cannons, now they deliver 7 cannons, Haubitzen, that's heavy mobile artillery, the German word for it, and then you give 7. I don't think that this will be impressing Putin much. We need 700. That would be the number, I think, to win the war in the Donbass. And we need them fast before the summer offensive, and not 7. So please, I have called already a lot of times for an arsenal of democracy of Europe for Ukraine, to really go into wartime economic management of our industrial efforts, like a Lend-Lease is already a good start. And we have to mobilize our industrial resources for the Ukraine's victory and our financial resources for Ukraine's victory, and also institutional to win it. As I have said already many times, it's only by Ukraine joining the NATO we can stop this war. We have to impose peace or an armistice, not to let them fight it out, but impose an armistice, and the time will come, because it will be very bloody and cruel to let this going on. Obviously, unity of Ukraine cannot be achieved militarily, but institutionally over time. And in the meantime, armistice must be imposed by the conditions of NATO membership, Euroization, and EU membership of a free Ukraine, similar like Western Germany. This is the much more humane and reasonable way to do it, and we have to impose this settlement on all the partners and still contain Russia and not integrate it into the world economy, but exclude it completely. Therefore, I also call for an end of all gas imports and all uranium imports into the European Union by Russia, from Russia, and also to make a real kind of trade embargo Because now we see in the case of Kaliningrad, for the last 3.5 months, there was a lot of movement still to Kaliningrad. Obviously, all trade from Russia into the EU or via the EU should be blocked and boycotted. And that is also then the clear signal that they cannot continue their kind of murderous policy, because it's not us having started, it's them having done this brutal war. They are the guilty party in front of the world's court opinion of the court of world opinion. And in fact, so we should have a complete energy end of the energy imports, a complete trade boycott, a complete transition into modern weapons for Ukraine, and also the financial package must be much more generous. I hope that is the direction it's going into this important week. I will make several videos now to call for exactly that, but I call for fast-track membership in the European Union and in NATO, for Kosovo, Bosnia in NATO, and then also EU candidate status, and for Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro. I think EU membership is already 2024 fully possible. And then obviously, especially for Montenegro, and especially then also EU candidate status, it's now anyhow happening. That's something very historic. So I hope there will be good decisions now in the coming week. It's an important week for Europe, and I think it will be a powerful week for European and Western unity, and also for a better world. And that's what I was now 4 years investing to have these results. I hope that this will be now a very successful week. And I hope we have very good results in terms of enlargement of our institutions. Maybe let me conclude. Once Sweden and Finland is in NATO, Austria, Cyprus, Malta and Ireland have to join NATO as well, to make sure that we have also the EU NATO membership. That is the ultimate aim I pursue, and I hope we can achieve that. Good. Thanks a lot for that. More to come on Pax Europiana in various items and sequences. I will now give my contributions to the upcoming summits of EU, NATO and G7. Thanks a lot. All the best. Bye.